Guys, welcome to part 2 of this here daily, where we're learning to be a better gamer from BravO and Leenock. In part 1, we talked about the openings and how they got there, and a lot of the zoomed in details, but I want to talk about a zoomed out detail by zooming in to the minimap. This minimap is going to illustrate why we may want to go mech on this map and not on others. And it has to do with where our expansions are located and how they relate to where the Zerg expansions are located. So first of all, we have our main and our natural for our Terran buddy here. And let's go ahead and take a look at the possible third bases. There's one here. And notice that it forms a nice triangle up on this top side. Notice that if a Zerg wanted to hit the main, he would actually have to go all the way to this far edge and then swing up like this. It's a very far location for Zerg to do that on. And similarly, we really just have this one flat face to defend right here. It's pretty straightforward. It's a nice, small surface area to defend. Let's look at this base over here. Same story. Very small ground surface area. And the added air surface area is only on this far extreme end. It's very tiny. And doubly, triply, quadruply, most importantly of all, look at the distance from here to here. It's super easy for us to defend all of our expansions in this general area. Wonderful. Tight expansions. Let's pretend for a moment that this expansion were not here at all. And this expansion were not here at all. You can see that going over to here would be very hard because there's this huge distance in the middle. If there's an expansion here, then we have a huge distance across. These are very tightly tucked to the natural. So that's our expansions. We see that on our side, stuff is very tightly packed together. However, we want to attack him because if we don't, then we're basically playing single player against no computers, alone, in a sad, echoey chamber. So let's look at the minimap again. A very important aspect to meching is when I have 3 to 4 bases, what is the distance between my defense point, which is right here, and his expansions? Notice immediately it's a short distance to here. It's a short distance to here. And it's a short distance-ish to here. We have very close distances to this base, and this base. So in a lot of ways, just by virtue of us having 4 base, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can lock him down to 1, 2, 3, 4 bases. I'm going to ask a question that's so obvious. What is more efficient in a direct engagement? A mech army or a Zerg army? The answer is mech. Notice that it was so easy because I didn't give you time to answer. That's my kind of quiz. So when we look at this minimap, we can see very clearly we get 4 bases really easily. He gets 4 bases really easily, and it's hard for him to get much more beyond that. 4 base Zerg loses to 4 base mech. End of story. It's all about small distances. Small, tiny little distances. And another thing to note, if we have small distances between subsequent bases, that helps us so much. And we can begin to see some of these here by like looking at this watchtower. Look at this. If I have tanks sieged here, this area is covered. Well, yeah, that's the only ground entrance from the left. This area is covered. Well, that's half the entrances from the right. The other one is right here. Cool. If I defend 1, this spot, and 2, this spot, I get the whole north of the map, which makes this expansion up here not a guaranteed expansion, but a very easy to get expansion. We're going to see that all cropping up a ton for BravO. So on Leenock's side of thing, we might say, well, how are we going to combat mech? We want to spread ourselves out, get as many bases as we can, and hit the weakest part of mech, mobility. I want you to think about that. We want to hit his weakest point, mobility. And if you say something like, I'm going to build roaches, and I'm going to overwhelm his mech with roaches, you're not thinking about mobility. You're thinking about your unit versus his unit. His weakness is mobility. He's meching. He's slow. He's slow. So you want to get units that are fast and go around him where he isn't. Tell me fast units. Mutas. Roaches. Lings. Oh! Fast. That's what we want to go for. Cool. So, we've talked about the motivations in the mid-game and what's going on. I want to talk about some specifics. Upgrades I'm not going to be going into too much detail on for Terran. He's just going to get them. And I'm only going to talk about the second armory. The rest of the time, this sucker's going to be pumping stuff out. At this point in time, BravO is looking to secure 4 bases. Many times we'll see these 3 factories only building Blue Flame Hellions. BravO's doing a gentle mix. 2 factories producing tanks and Thors, so that he can build up a nice meaty core army to defend these 4 bases. And he's going to get just a few Hellions to have just a little map presence, so he can just hurt Zerg a little bit. Now let's take a look at Zerg camp, because Leenock plays correctly. My god, he plays correctly, which makes me admire him erectly. Okay, he does the right things. He doesn't go, well, ultras might be good against tanks. He doesn't say, well, this unit might be good against that unit. Well, Roach, Hydra, Viper, if I blinding Cloud, not the important thing. His weakness is not that he has tanks and you're going to attack him. His weakness is his mobility. Something tastes just wrong about this water. This water just doesn't taste right. Burrow. Why is burrow an important thing? So we can burrow, he'll walk past us, and we can unburrow. And it's hard for him to chase us. We're exploiting the mobility. Look at BravO, keeping on point with his logic. Alright, he's just going to take the closest base. This one's very easy to defend. Even has another a little high ground here, easy to defend. Alright, roach speed, I dig it. Why banelings? Gonna skip that for now, don't worry. Here's the other part that I wanted to time up. Yeah, the second armory. Remember, this one's gonna be cranking out. Second armory comes pretty soon because he wants to get some upgrades for late game. He wants to be powerful later. He's going for 4 base mech. And why is he going to win? Because his 4 base is better than a Zerg 4 base. And what makes 4 base even better? Fully upgraded 4 base. So those lings we start to see do things we didn't get to see because I was distracted. Alright, here we go. This moment, this little teensy moment, is going to be your introduction. And by that I mean Leenock's introduction to fast versus slow. Check the shit out. Leenock has his Mutalisks. Look what he sees. Nothing. He's just in a position. He's got Mutalisks here. He's got Lings there. He's just in a position. And then he sees Hellions move out here. And he goes, oh, if Hellions are here, therefore Hellions are not here. I don't know about if therefore statements, but I'll use them. And surprise! Invasion. Successful. He's going to get 1. Likely to. Nah, BravO's a little too good for that. But keep in mind, if 1 Thor would go down, these Mutalisks could then pose a very big threat. That was an opportunity that Leenock took that didn't quite pay out. But that's fine, that's the introduction. Macro hatch down for Leenock, most notably not getting the geysers yet. First got up this macro hatch, then waited a little bit of time, and then got the extractors. He's trying to catch up on minerals. Makes sense, he's been on 2 base for a while. Upgrades, getting the upgrades, upgrading good, just the way he should. Oops, trying to sweep these Hellions, trying to push these Hellions back as much as possible. Why? So all of BravO's force is slow, and he has very few fast elements. BravO, we see, has only had 3 factories producing units. Tanks 2 at a time, Hellions 2 at a time. Waited a while to get these factories up. That's why BravO wanted to build up those tanks early on, so he could be safe. Look at him, he's just protecting himself. Look at these gorgeous rings of turrets. Turrets, turrets, turrets. Basically, this is as good as a turret. Oh, look, turret, turret, turret. Wow, in fact, it's the points on this map. It's this edge here that has the most turrets, and it has this edge here that has the most turrets. Let's look back in the main base. Some turrets being added. Not a huge amount, just some. Because the threat is smaller here. The biggest threats, this back side. Ooh, when we see many a turret, and of course the other big threat is this side. Ooh, we see many turrets. As I do my dog voice. Ooh, ooh, tunneling claws. Why tunneling claws? Because it's another way to exploit mobility. So we see things like this Banshee trying to ruin BravO's day. No such thing will occur. And this is yet a perfect example of this exploitation of mobility. Things getting a little bit out of position and just picking it off. I'm going to be sneezing soon. Uh-oh. So Leenock trying to hit at the left and at the right side at the same time. He's trying to just spread his opponent thin. Little Mutalisk poke up here. Little Zergling poke down here. Not doing huge stuff. Now, here in the mid-game is where I see, few foreign players. Players like Demaga get it. Most don't. Look at this. Look at this flood of hatches on opposite sides of the map. They're not close together. If BravO attacks this and kills it, this other new expansion lives. If BravO attacks here and kills it, this other expansion lives. If for some reason Leenock decided to expand here and here, one single attack could plop here and kill both. If you are against an immobile army, a slow army, exploit it by positioning your bases far away. Again, it's not about this unit versus that unit. We're making fast units to exploit his slow units, so we're going to put expansions far away to exploit his slow units. Boom! Love it. Love it! BravO's doing something that looks like it sense no makes, but it does. Flooding with command centers, because soon enough, we can begin to get oodles of orbitals, and we can apply pressure by killing our own SCVs. Replacing that supply with juicy mech and relying on mules. Now, let's talk about what just happened here from BravO. He got up a good amount of units, and you're going to say, what's a good amount of units? And I'm just going to say, man, go play. Go play and try to just have what you think is a good amount, because that's the hard part. But the easy part is to say, look at what he did. Functionally, BravO moved from here to there. But suddenly, in our mini-map, we see that just the act of moving from up here to down here instantly threatens this expansion. I mean, they're very, very close. We're starting to see in a more explicit fashion why Mech is potentially strong. So Leenock answers by just going around. And he'll see an answer. He'll see those units pull back, but he's still threatening it. Now, the one unit that people would say don't build versus Mech is probably Mutalisks, because Thors, and that's the entire chain of thought that people will use. Because Thors! I had a thought once, but I stopped because Thors. Mutalisks are bad versus Thors. No one will ever disagree with you. But in Zerg versus Mech, it's not unit versus unit. It's fast versus slow. Thors can't hurt anything that have run away. I'm on fire with this analysis. Thors can't hit things when there are no things. And oftentimes, Mutalisks will make themselves not a thing. We see armor upgrades. Why armor? Because armor gets a +4 boost. Because right there it says attacks 4. And 4 times 1 is 4. Let's appreciate BravO's formation. He has orbital commands abounding, so that way he can scan. He can scan everywhere. He can see everything. He might even be willing to sacrifice some SCVs to replace them with mules. But wait a minute, why would he not be sacrificing them right now? Because what is Terran's biggest weakness? Being slow. Being out of position. Having your tanks over here when they need to be over there. So with this many orbital commands, with 6 right now, he can scan a lot. He can scan to see what's going on, and in fact, if I sit on the BravO cam, which I will, I'm just going to go ×8 speed. And you're going to just see scans aplenty begin to fall down. Scan, scan. There's nothing really to scan because there's just a battle going on there. Oh, there's some scans there. There's another scan there. There's another scan there. Now this, actually, that one scan there, I missed the pause button, but look at this scan. Look at this scan. This is on a choke, man. Whoa, whoops, I was accidentally mousing over the wrong window. Yeah, look at this choke here that he's scanning. That's a nonsense place to scan most of the time, but this is an important attack path on the map, so of course he'd want to scan. He has an army that could potentially be out of position. Alright, we're going to reseek. We're going to go back to the 17.5 minute mark where we were before. We're going to go to the everyone cam. No. Alright. Players changing back to the correct colors. Yeah, here's the orbitals coming up. Notice how turreted this has become. Because this is a weak spot. Again, is that roach counter that I spoketh about. Why is the roach counter happening? Because we're getting hit over here. Yuck. Mutilus all the way up here at this top side. We're starting to see BravO get worn a little thin. The only thing that's in mid is 5 tanks. We can see on screen the dangers of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Especially when our opponent is pulling us in so many different places. Now, a play that I would really love is the double Nidus. Nidus here. Move an Overlord up, Nidus. Very hard to stop 2 Niduses unless there's a unit already there to deal with stuffs. See the scans going down. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Terran's positioning just right now, and then we're going to switch over to talking more on the Zerg side of things. We see that the sort of core ground attack angle is largely where the tanks are. It's kind of at the center of all things, or where the tanks are. This watchtower up here, we'd ideally love that to be up, but everywhere else, it's at the points where there's the most defense. This is a point. Obviously, on the minimap, we can just see that it's the point, right? Here's one point. There's another point. The third point is this main. They form a triangle. Weakness is at the points. Yep. Weakness is at the points. Look, we even see some turrets going up there. Wow. We totally understand shapes. Such shape. So the Mutalists that we're hitting up at this top side, up where these units were. Oh, for the first time, BravO's out of position. Look at them getting ready to beeline. Oh shit, we've made a mistake. And we just see waltzing right up. Just murdering this so quickly. And notice how not out of control Leenock's behaving. He's not trying to suicide in to do anything. He's weakening these points. And we see there's only 3 tanks out right now. So Leenock can respond by trying to get these roaches into a good position. Trying to exploit this lack of tanks. And I think that this is a very clever move that BravO makes. He scans around himself, sees the roaches, and just guns it. He's gunning for a quick poke at this base. Now this is the first attack we've seen all game long. Let's see the results. Immediately Leenock counters. Like, immediately. Counters not once, but twice. Notice what Leenock's doing here. He's not fucking attacking this army. He's not. I used the F word, and that's important here. Because very often, It's easy to be like, but how do roaches beat the tank Thors? What roaches at tank Thors? There's no roaches at tank Thors. Look at this. And this is why we spread our expansions out. Because when they're spread out, we'll lose an expansion, and we're going to try to make him lose 2 expansions. Tragically, BravO was, or Leenock was unable to kill off a base. He will lose 1. And look at the way that BravO killed it off. He pulled almost everything back, but not everything. Because indeed, Zerg was the one out of position as well. Now, what we're getting a chance to see is a replenish moment. It's very easy to talk about the composition of going into battle. But again, we look at what does he seem to be high on and low on? Well, he seems to be sort of high on the anti-air, which we know, but Leenock probably thought that he was going to be building more tanks than he was. So Leenock's overcompensating in the wrong direction. But what would have been the dopest move ever would be to have built a whole slew of roaches. To replenish with roaches, and to exploit his ever so big lack of tanks. That said, though, we're 41 Mutalisks. That's right, 41. We're seeing Leenock do a couple of huge surprise moves. This is honestly why speed is so important. Leenock didn't make the unit for unit correct answer. You want to exploit his mobility with what unit will hurt it the most. So roaches probably would have been able to bust in here and do a little more damage to these limited Thor amounts. But here's what you gain out of mobility, even though we might argue roaches are better in this spot. Look at this. He just floats in anyways. He was at 41 Mutalisks. Okay, he dropped to 34. And now BravO's gonna lose a lot. BravO can't even engage. BravO actually has to hide a lot of these units right now. Oh, look, there's a Thor. Well, that's a free unit. Alright, cool. These tanks, these are free units. I think Leenock is getting a little overeager. He should park there and kill that off. SCVs are always more important than anything. Oh, these Vikings are out of position. Alright, great. Let's kill that off. Oh, wait. There's where the Thors are. Okay. Oh, look, some free units. Cool. Mutals haven't really engaged the big Thor pack. They're trundling their way over. Oh, wow, look, we can see the same stuff again from BravO that we saw before. Whenever he gets countered, he leaves almost, or he pulls almost everything back, but he leaves a good chunk of stuff there. Really elegant play by both players. And then we see Leenock do something, I think that it's a little bit over-aggressive. A little bit overly bold, but the Mutalisks come back to clean up the small army. I think if the Mutalisks cleaned up the small army, poked and prodded a little bit more, this base could have opened itself up for a huge counter. Now let's reevaluate the situation right now. The Terran player is basically going to be returtling. There's really not a lot of choices for the Terran player. Zerg is going to look for any vulnerability, but he's not really going to find one. This is where Leenock needs to kill this off, take this expansion. This expansion, even though it's horrible in general, is still okay. Any expansion at this phase is fantastiquement. We see a much period of calm yet again. So BravO's doing some interesting choices, moving forward with just the mobile chunk of the army, the Viking Thor component, staying relatively chilled back with everything else. Any vulnerability that Leenock sees, he's going to try to strike as hard as he can. That was not one of them, but I think it's great that he is making those sorts of moves. Those are the sort of moves that win games, when you just spot another 5 Thors out in the blue and you punish it. So we still see there hasn't been the big sacrifice of SCVs, which makes sense. He's still desperately scanning to try to make sure his position is good. I mean, the number of scans from BravO, there's a scan. He's just scanning for expansions. He doesn't really need to attack here, or here, or here, or even really here. He just needs to pound this base a little bit and definitely shut this one down. Now, it's a messy art. Obviously, it's not as simple as, oh, well, if he ever gets a 5th base up, then great. He wins, and if I can prevent him, then great, I win. We can finesse a little bit more than that. And just talk about things like generally this has taken a lot of damage and a lot of drones have died here. Generally, even though this has mined some amount of resources, it's been overall net negative. That's sort of what I'm talking about. So here BravO is doing a very smart move. He's layering up defenses in ways that highlight the weakness he's trying to fix. This is weak. This is strong against ground with the Hellion Siege Tank mix, and weak against air. So boom, 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 boom turrets. Over here, this is strong against air with all the turrets and the Thors there. So great. Makes up for it with Planetary Fortress on the ground. For the record, you don't need a huge amount of siege tanks to be very strong against roaches. You just need some. We saw Leenock moving right in here. Actually, I don't know if he used that burrow tactic or if he just walked. I think he just walked because there was no need. But you can do things like, you know, if you're holding this watchtower and, you know, there's like some siege tanks there, you can like roach burrow and use tunneling claws to walk in here. You're starting to see why I like double nidusing here. Great exploitation of death weakness. Such great exploitation. Ooh, doing little burrow stuff's being annoying. Annoying as hell. A distracted Terran is not even going to notice that. So the last thing I want to note before this segment ends is the scan here. He's killed the base, and guess where he goes? Home, baby. Because right now, guess what? We're 4 base versus 3 base. This is the only base Leenock's got. So our original evil, wicked plan is working out great. It's hard for Leenock to try to do these sort of multi-pronged attacks because things are so mushed together on Yeonsu. But Leenock is still able to put in a lot of punches, and BravO has the clear lead now. So when we come back, we're going to see how BravO closes it out with this great lead, using these great compositions, generally low on the tank count, not 0 by any means. Like the tank count must stay above 6, but it doesn't need to go above 12 a lot of times. And a big chunk of Thors, great splitting, great positioning. It's just a really beautiful game. So we're going to come back, we're going to finish this game in part 3, we're going to take questions.